This is a series of films that tells the history of contemporary fashion photography as seen through the eyes of models. Do you ever then, I'm sorry to ask you a personal question, do you ever find your work sexual?
Well, it's that divide again, isn't it, between sexuality and sensuality. And I think it's how I approach it, really.
Yeah.
I feel empowered as a woman, and I don't ever feel that I've needed to bring my sexuality into that.
Right.
It feels like it's more of a cerebral stance.
Yeah.
Even if it's a physical gesture or a gimmicky outfit, it's something for me that has to come from within.
Yeah.
In order to tell the story.
Yeah. So, I saw that show. I was probably sitting just outside of the mirror just here, watching you do an amazing performance. Tell me a little bit about it from your side.
Well, it's probably the most exciting show I've ever done.
Really?
In my career. To me, it defines why I love my job, my life, my sort of career. I don't know how you want to put it. When Alexander McQueen made this dress for me, it was done with such painstaking detail, and I was really kind of involved in the story. As you can see, it's what are they called? The razor shells, razor clams. Yeah. And the hours of work that were put in, and the amount of hands that were brought in to kind of sew each individual shell onto the dress. And before the show started, yet again, we don't really get a rehearsal. We get some kind of vague guidance, which is always shaky territory. So he said, okay, so this is what I need you to do. So you're in a lunatic asylum. I need you to go mental, have a nervous breakdown, die, and then come back to life. And can you do that in 3 minutes, and then just sort of follow the crescendo of the music?
Yeah.
You know, unlike actors and actresses, we're not directed, and we're never given a rehearsal, and you are open, you have free rein to kind of do what you think is right and how you should represent something. So I go out, and just before, he sort of grabs me by the clam and he says, I want you to rip the dress off. And I just think, are you sure? Are you sure you want me to rip the dress off? Yeah, it'll be really in the moment. I just want you to just tear it off and just have this breakdown and I just thought, oh my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And so all of a sudden I did exactly as I was told. And I had worried that it looked like in some way that I was victimized or a victim of being, sort of in that mindset. And actually it was the complete opposite. It was stripping away sort of the pain and the armor and just going, here I am, And it was so dramatic, and you can see from that image, I've kind of surrendered. I'm right there at the end, and I've just gone, this just happened, this just really happened. And he pushed me, and I'm glad.
It was an amazing show, and probably one of the best bits of contemporary fashion theatre, if you can call it that, I've ever witnessed.
Yeah.
At the point you ran your hands up the razor clam.
Yeah, that wasn't the best idea.
But it was fantastic because they then all smashed and shattered and fell down like bits of.
But my hands were slightly bloody at the end. So I remember coming off and being really shocked, because that's what I mean with the power of adrenaline when it's a live performance, which they always are, essentially. You don't quite know what's happened until you come off and try and register it. It's like this enormous high.
Yeah.
And then you are brought back down to earth when you see the reality of what's gone on. But yeah, it was very special.
But we should just explain a little bit. This happened within a mirrored box.
Yes.
That before the show started, it was mirrored, so the audience just sat in front of their own reflection.
That's right.
Which is an incredibly clever psychological trick.
Yes.
Put all the audience 2 foot away from their own reflection, so you had to study yourself or stare down at your feet.
Yeah.
So Alexander McQueen basically had the whole of the audience staring at their feet for an hour. Humbled in front of the
That's interesting. Work. See, I didn't know that. So we're from the inside out, whereas you were literally looking through. Yeah. Into the box.
Well, this was the super clever thing about it, that actually you sat there, and because the show was at that time back an hour late, so you sat there and I had Alexander Shulman here and Gwyneth Paltrow there, and I didn't particularly, if you look in front of you, you either see your own reflection or you see Gwyneth or Alex Shulman.
Yeah.
I didn't particularly want to stare at anybody, so you end up in the same area. So you end up sort of looking like this.
Yeah, you sort of look everywhere but there, don't you?
So the whole audience is actually just sitting there,
and we couldn't
heads
see
bowed.
you either.
No, you could.
Could we?
Yes, you
I
could,
don't
because the
remember
lights
that.
are on outside. So apparently you could see us, and I felt very aware that probably behind the mirror there was whatever. But people,
I really don't remember it like that. That's so interesting.
So it was a two-way system, so that when the lights were on inside the box, we could see in. When the lights were on outside the box, you could see out, we couldn't see in.
Yes, right at the end, because I don't get the sense I'm looking at any of you when I'm in that state.
In that box you wouldn't have been able to see us at all.
No, got it.
Until the show finishes, lights go up in the room, down in the box.
Yeah.
And
what do you think when you see that image?
I thought, well, I've actually rephotographed that dress since I did it for a tribute to Lee, and they had to sort of remake it to a certain degree. And I so wanted the girl I had in it to do what you did, which is to push her arms up through it and let the whole thing break. And of course you can't, but it's an archive piece.
Well, it's a piece of art, isn't it, as well? At that
they're not going to let you do that. So you were very lucky that you managed to have that dress to create your own version of.
Well, it was him, it was Lee, and really he had every right to sort of give me instructions of how he wanted the dress to be seen. And actually it was in its best state when it was being dismantled and pulled apart.
Yeah, it was incredible. It was a tall white dress that looked like, as you ran your hands up past it, that looked like it was a building collapsing and bits of the building coming off it. So it was very potent as a symbol, and it's just incredibly beautiful. So how much are you aware of what the other girls are doing in this situation? Because you're in a complete performance, and so many of the other girls. Karen, I think it was Karen that had the Sean Lean piece on that was so... And
then Jade, I think, had some sort of Hulk bird, so Vulcan attached to her neck.
Yes, that's right.
Do you remember that? Yeah. I think you get the wow bit before, where you all of a sudden see which character you're all playing, and you kind of look at each other and wow. And then you sort of all end up huddling around the monitor, and especially in about the first 5 to 10 seconds, you can hear the support from backstage kind of willing you on. Yeah. Wow, there was nothing shy about doing a show in London at that particular point. But in a way, to honour your kind of your mate, not really your fellow model. Yeah. You kind of gave a performance for them too. So you know, when you had been on, you'd come off and you'd go back and you'd huddle around the monitor and you'd watch them go. Yeah. Which was great. Which was really great. And then you'd go home and you'd maybe stop somewhere on the way home and get something to eat, and you'd say, what just happened? Yeah. And then you'd be holed up in some hotel in Paddington waiting to pack for Paris the next morning. And the power and the potency of that, as you say, was so extreme and otherworldly. And then you take off the razor shells and the performance, and then you somehow go home and you reconcile with that as a moment, and then you have to be comfortable with the person staring back at you. This
is probably one of the single most important moments in fashion that I've witnessed over the last 30 years or so. Yeah. And
lovely to hear.
It sits along with all those other great, Davima and the Elephants. It sits along with all of those, right? Going back to Lartigue and his girlfriend. There are certain moments that represent fashion, and this for me was certainly one of them.
And it was so lovely for me as a model to be a part of that. I don't think I ever did a straight catwalk in London for the first few years of my career. There's no such thing. Yeah. It wasn't about uniformity and copying the girl in front of you. You were given free rein to go out and create your own story with the support and trust of the creator. Yeah. And you can never take those moments back. Yeah. And perhaps nor should they carry on as they were, because if we neutralised performances like that and we don't see them for how incredible they were, then we're in trouble. They defined an era, and to be central to that in some small way or visual way was the making of my career, but also for me as a person. Yeah. It's really funny because mum and dad came to that show.
Really?
And they were sat with Isabella Blow.
Oh, really?
She was so lovely to them, and she really took them under her wing or her hat.
Or the wing on her hat,
yeah,
yes.
and when my dad saw me, he didn't see me at all. He saw some person or woman that he had never expected to see, nor had he identified with. And he cried.
Really?
Yeah, he cried really hard. He couldn't believe that I had it in me to want to express like that.
Yeah. No, those shows were incredibly emotional. And they were. That's why I think they were very powerful pieces of theatre.
Yeah, because they were real. It was real emotion. It wasn't. There was nothing gimmicky about it. It was for the benefit of creating something so authentic.
Yeah.
And that was enough.
I'm not the first person I've heard whose parents have cried at a
Really?
Alexander McQueen show. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were completely moved, and actually it's reassuring to know whether you're in fashion or not, whether you're interested or not, you can be completely moved and engaged in something that takes your breath away. And that's what happened to my parents. I think they had never seen something so dramatic and alive.
Yeah, I think when your parents realise that the power of the medium that you're involved in,
that's right.
It's a great feeling.
But also who you are somehow all of a sudden in your own right, something that's away from what they know and what they give you and how they can comfort you, and they've given me a lot of those things.
Yeah.
But because of them, they sort of facilitated that in me in a very humble, unassuming way. Yeah. They gave me that drive. Yeah. And then I think maybe to see the product at the end, who the bloody hell is she? You know, and that's kind of how it happened. Yeah. Yeah, it's really great.